Today's topic is learning. It is higher function of the brain. Definition: it refers to a neural mechanism by which the individual changes his or her behavior on the basis of past experience. There are two patterns of learning: reflex learning and incidental learning. What is reflex learning? It is associated with immediate behavioral changes, and reflex learning divided into two broad classes: non-associative learning and associative learning. So reflex learning is developed reflexly, immediate behavior changes. Incidental learning: individual acquire information about the world while attending incidentally to sensory inputs and thereby develop the potential to behave differently. Okay, so reflex learning and incidental learning. Now, non-associative learning: subject learns about properties of single stimulus. It results when person is repeatedly exposed to a single type of stimulus. There are two forms of non-associative learning: habituation and sensitization. So what is habituation? It refers to decrease in a response to a benign stimulus when stimulus is presented repeatedly. For example, clock ticking initially disturbs the sleep, but after some time, we are habituated to this clock ticking. So noxious stimulus result in a recovery of the habituated response called dishabituation. Dishabituation means noxious stimulus result in a recovery of the habituated response. It is known as a dishabituation. So now, what is cellular basis of habituation? So it has been studied in lower animal like snail aplasia. Habituation of gill. So this is gill area in lower part. Withdrawal reflex occurs when siphon of snail. Siphon of snail is touched repeatedly. So this is siphon. Here there is a gill. So when there is a repeatedly we touch this area, siphon, the snail does not withdraw its gill anymore. Initially there is a withdrawal, but after some time there is no withdrawal. So it is known as a habituation. Habituation is associated with the decrease in neurotransmitter. In second figure you can see there is a decreased number of neurotransmitter. In first figure there is a more number of neurotransmitter release when we touch the siphon. But if we repeatedly give stimulation to siphon, then it get habituated and there is a decrease in a response because of decreased number of neurotransmitter. So it is because of inactivation of calcium channel. But exact mechanism is not known. So this is a cellular basis of habituation. Now sensitization: it is opposite to habituation. Repeated application of distinctly pleasant or unpleasant means strong stimulus produces greater and greater response. For example, animal respond more vigorously to a mild tactile stimulus after it has received a painful pinch. So this is known as a sensitization. Repeated application of pleasant and unpleasant stimulus. So cellular mechanism for sensitization. Cellular level mechanism. So in sensitization, it is opposite to habituation. On repeated stimulation, there is a decrease in a response. It is habituation. As we know, in sensitization, learning occurs in direction opposite to that seen in habituation. so that behavior becomes directed toward escape from the stimulus. Moreover, sensitizing stimulus can override the effect of habituation and it causes dishabituation. So this is sensitizing stimulus, okay, here on the tail, okay. So it will lead to increase in neurotransmitter when sensitization occurs. In this figure you can see, okay, neurotransmitter release occurs, but as compared to this control in sensitization, you can see there is a more number of neurotransmitter are released, okay. So response will be more in sensitization. So it is because of due to presynaptic facilitation of synaptic transmission brought about the facilitatory neuron. Now exact cellular mechanism. So again this is demonstrated in lower animal like Aplasia snail, okay. So after painful stimulus is applied to tail repeatedly, snail subsequently withdraw its gill much more vigorously in response to simple touch on the siphon, okay. So the sensitization is associated with the increased release of neurotransmitter from the axonal ending of sensory neuron. So this result due to presynaptic facilitation of synaptic transmission brought about by third neuron called facilitatory neuron, okay. So this thing we have discussed. Now what exactly means, what are the chemical changes occurs, or we can say what is exact molecular mechanism for that. So transmitter released by presynaptic neuron, okay, presynaptic neuron is serotonin 5-HT, okay. Now it binds to 2-serotonin receptor, okay, 2-serotonin receptor on the sensory nerve terminal, okay. So here you can see there are 2-serotonin receptor on sensory nerve terminal. So after binding with this receptor, one engages with the G protein, okay, one engage with G protein, GS protein we can say, okay, and after that adenyl cyclase converts, it activates adenyl cyclase first and then it converts ATP to cyclic AMP, okay. It converts ATP, adenosine triphosphate, to cyclic adenosine monophosphate, cyclic AMP, and thereby it increases the level of cyclic AMP in terminal of sensory neuron. Now cyclic AMP activates cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase by attaching to its inhibitory regulatory subunit, thus releasing its active catalytic subunit, and the catalytic subunit of this pKa acts along 3 biochemical pathways, okay, and it increases neurotransmitter at axonal nerve ending of sensory neuron, okay. So there are 3 pathway after activating this mechanism, cyclic AMP dependent pKa, okay. So first pathway, this catalytic subunit phosphorylase potassium channels, thereby decreasing potassium current, and this prolongs action potential and increases influx of calcium and thus increases transmitter release. In second pathway, vesicle containing transmitter are mobilized to releasable transmitter pore at the active zone, and efficacy of this exocytic release machinery is also enhanced. And third pathway, L type of calcium channel are open and serotonin acting through this second receptor, okay, engages the G protein, GO protein here, okay. This is second receptor, okay. So phospholipase C, it activates phospholipase C, then diacylglycerol, and then protein kinase, activate protein kinase, and it also activates this L type of channel, okay. So ultimately it increases calcium influx, and again there is a release of more neurotransmitter, okay. So there are 3 pathways through which there is an increased neurotransmitter release, okay. Now associative learning. Subject learns about the relationship between two stimuli or between a stimulus and behavior. It is known as a associative learning. Okay. Two forms: classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Classical conditioning, it involves learning a relationship between two stimuli, also termed as a Pavlovian conditioning. Reflex is a reflex response to a stimulus that previously elicited little or no response, acquired by repeatedly pairing the stimulus with another stimulus that normally does produce the response. Okay, it can be explained by Pavlov's experiment. Okay, so when food or unconditional stimulus, okay, is presented to hungry dog, it produces salivation. Okay, salivation. So it is unconditional response. If bell is rung, okay, so it is conditional response. Ringing of bell is conditioned stimulus. Sorry. So just before the food, if we rung the bell, okay, then dog learns to associate the bell with food. Okay, food is an unconditional stimulus. Eventually, ringing the bell alone, okay, ringing the bell alone cause salivation. Okay, so in first figure you can say before conditioning, unconditioned stimulus is food is given to, means it is presented to the dog, so there is a salivation, and before giving this food we expose dog to the conditional stimulus, ringing of bell, no salivation, and during conditioning we presented both, okay, bell as well as food, and here response is salivation, unconditional response, and in after conditioning, okay, just ringing of the bell can cause salivation in the dog. Okay, so now there is a development of conditioning. So if food fails to appear consistently when bell is rung, conditioned response fades away. This process is known as a internal inhibition or extinction. Okay, so reinforcement, a process of following condensed stimulus with basic uncondensed stimulus is must for retaining a condensed reflex. So in Pavlov's experiment, if food fails to appear consistently, then when bell is rung, the condensed response fades away. Okay, and response is known as internal inhibition and extinction. Now physiological basis of condensed reflex, it is explained by the formation of new functional connection in the nervous system, intracortical as well as subcortical. For example, in Pavlov's experiment, salivation in response to ringing of bell indicates that functional connection has developed between auditory pathways and autonomic center controlling salivation. Now cellular mechanism, okay, cellular mechanism of condensed reflex. So physiologically, condensed reflex is explained by formation of new functional connection in the nervous system. We have already discussed this thing. Okay, so in this condition, in classical conditioning, it involves the presynaptic facilitation of synaptic transmission that is dependent on activity in both the presynaptic and postsynaptic cell. Okay, so in this figure again a lower animal snail is taken for demonstration. Okay, so when unconditional stimulus, okay, to the tail of snail is applied to the tail of the snail, and condensed stimulus on the applied on the mantle of self at time, so that uncondensed stimulus just precedes the condensed stimulus. Okay, then modulatory interneurons engaged by uncondensed stimulus. Now uncondensed stimulus will activate the sensory neuron immediately after condensed stimulus has activated the sensory neuron, and this sequential activation of sensory neuron during critical interval by CS and US, means conditioned stimulus and unconditioned stimulus, leads to greater presynaptic facilitation. Okay, so there is a increased neurotransmitter substance, okay, when it is paired with unconditioned stimulus. Okay, so this is cellular mechanism in lower animal like Aplasia snail. Now operant conditioning, it is termed as a instrumental conditioning or type 2 conditioning, trial and error conditioning. The two type, reward and adverse. In reward conditioning, naturally occurring response is strengthened by positive reinforcement, and adverse conditioning, naturally occurring response is weakened by negative reinforcement, punishment. So one experiment was done. Okay, so in this experiment, hungry animal like rat placed in the cage, and in the cage there is a lever bar. Okay, so if pressing of lever is not associated with any event, pressing of lever will be at a random rate. If pressing of lever it associated with the positive reinforcement, for example, when a rat press the bar, there is a coming out of food, okay, from this area. Okay, so there is a reward conditioning. Okay, so rate of pressing the bar will be increased. Okay, so there is a development of reward conditioning. Now pressing of lever is associated with the negative reinforcement or punishment, like when rat press this bar and rat got electric shock, then lever pressing rate will be much less than a random rate. Okay, so this is experiment showing, okay, reinforcement regarding this conditioning. So operant conditioning means it is a time for food and I should press the lever, and classical conditioning, there goes the bell and it's a time for food. Okay, thank you.